The words hit me like a punch to the chest. As soon as she's done with the project, she's out, and you're in. I wasn't supposed to hear it. I had just stepped out of the conference room to grab a report from my desk. As I passed by the executive suite, the door to my boss's office was slightly ajar. It was his son speaking, Ethan, fresh out of business school, freshly groomed to be the next CEO of Horizon Dynamics, entitled Arrogant and Reckless. He was talking to his best friend, Jared, who had never set foot in the tech industry before today. Dad said it himself. Claire's just finishing the project. After that, she's history. You'll take over her role. Easy. Ethan chuckled. She doesn't even know. Poor thing still thinks she's irreplaceable. My throat tightened. For a moment, I felt paralyzed. 15 years of loyalty, of late nights, weekends sacrificed, solving problems nobody else could figure out. I had built the predictive analytics platform that now made up 70% of the company's revenue. And yet, just like that, I was disposable. But I didn't step inside. I didn't slam the door open. I didn't say a word. Not yet. Instead, I turned around, slowly, carefully, and walked back to my desk as if I'd heard nothing at all. On the surface, I was calm. Inside, my mind was a storm. My name is Claire Reynolds. I'm 47 years old. Senior Director of Systems Architecture at Horizon Dynamics, a tech company that exploded from a tiny startup to a $500 million enterprise in less than a decade. And a company I had helped build, line by line, code by code. The irony was cruel. Just last week, my boss, Ethan's father, Charles Whitman, stood in the quarterly meeting praising my work to the entire staff. Claire's leadership on the Nexus project is groundbreaking. This will define the future of Horizon Dynamics, he'd said. Everyone clapped. Ethan smiled right along with them, sitting in the front row with that smug, privileged grin. But behind closed doors? Different story. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the files spread across my laptop. The Nexus project, the most advanced AI-driven predictive engine on the market. Years of my life poured into this. The final deliverables were scheduled for 6 weeks from now, and apparently, as soon as I hit submit, I was gone. I replayed the conversation in my head over and over. Was it real? Had I misheard? Number, I knew exactly what I'd heard. She's out, and you're in. I closed my laptop slowly, took a deep breath, and for the first time in a long while, I smiled. Because what they didn't know is that I always have a backup plan. The next morning, I walked into the office like nothing had happened, smiled at the receptionist, said good morning to the marketing director in the elevator, checked in with my team, 7 engineers I had personally hired, trained, and mentored over the years. Hey, Claire, is everything on track for the Nexus rollout? My project manager asked. Absolutely, I nodded, ahead of schedule. If only they knew. In the corner office, Ethan strutted around like he already owned the place. His father had announced just last month that he would retire at the end of the quarter, and Ethan would step in as the new CEO. Nepotism at its finest. No one dared to question it, not publicly. But the murmurs were everywhere. People whispered over coffee, traded nervous glances in meetings. No one trusted him. No one believed he was ready, but no one could stop it. A week passed, then another. I worked late every night, just as I always had. Only now, for different reasons. I wasn't building the Nexus project for them anymore. I was building it for me. What Ethan didn't realize, what Charles had never cared to check, was that the intellectual property agreements were outdated, sloppy. Horizon's legal team had never updated the ownership clauses when I transitioned from contractor to full-time employee 10 years ago. Half the architecture for Nexus, still coded under my personal license from my consultancy days. Logged, documented, time-stamped. It was subtle, but critical. Without my final authentication keys, Nexus wouldn't run. Not fully, not legally. Not profitably. I sat in the back of the quarterly shareholders meeting that Friday, watching as Charles officially announced his retirement. "It's been an honor to lead Horizon Dynamics these past 20 years, he said, wiping a faux tear from his eye. "I leave you in the capable hands of my son, Ethan." The room clapped politely, some more enthusiastic than others. Ethan grinned, walking to the podium. Thank you. I'm honored. And I promise, big things are coming." I leaned back in my chair, silent, smiling. Yes, Ethan, I thought. Big things are coming indeed. Because Monday morning, everything would change. Monday morning arrived sharper than usual. The autumn air was crisp, the kind that stung your skin just enough to remind you that change was inescapable. Fitting, really. I stood outside Horizon Dynamics headquarters for a moment longer than usual, staring at the glass facade that reflected the rising sun. 15 years of my life were wrapped inside those walls, but not for much longer. Game on, I whispered under my breath before swiping my badge. The lobby was buzzing. A giant banner hung above the reception desk. "Congratulations, Ethan Whitman, our new CEO." The staff stood awkwardly around the catered breakfast, half trying to look supportive, half pretending to care. The HR director gave Ethan a bouquet of flowers like he'd won a beauty pageant. I almost laughed. Ethan was in his element, shaking hands, giving fake smiles, and probably imagining himself as the next Steve Jobs. He noticed me across the room and gave me a tight, forced grin. I returned it. Polite. Neutral. Enjoy it while it lasts. By 9 a.m., the all-hands meeting started. Ethan took the stage with his signature smug confidence. "Thank you, everyone. First, I just want to say how humbled and honored I am to lead Horizon into this next chapter." He began, reading directly from the teleprompter. "We're modernizing. We're optimizing. We're streamlining." I could practically hear the buzzwords grinding together. Then came the dagger, but not directed at me. Not yet. "With this new leadership, there will be strategic adjustments," Ethan said, his tone smugly rehearsed. "Some roles may evolve. Some processes may change." Several employees exchanged uneasy glances. They knew what that meant. Cutbacks, layoffs, restructuring. My fingers tapped my notebook, perfectly calm. Not yet. Wait. Later that afternoon, I was called into Ethan's office. "Claire?" He smiled, motioning me to sit. "So, first day as CEO. Big, right?" "Huge," I nodded, masking every ounce of disdain. "Congratulations." He leaned back, fingers steepled, pretending to play CEO. "Listen, let's talk about the Nexus project. You're close to finalizing, right?" "Very close," I replied evenly. "Final testing is underway. Deployment package scheduled by the end of next week." "Perfect." His grin grew wider. "Because I've got a bold new strategy in place. Fresh leadership, younger energy. Once Nexus rolls out, we'll be shifting the technical leadership model." He didn't even have the spine to say the words outright. "Shifting my role?" I asked, letting the tension hang like a loaded gun between us. "Don't take it personal," he said, waving a hand like he was swatting a fly. "It's about vision, evolution, a new era for Horizon. Once the project's done, we're gonna go in a different direction." I nodded slowly, letting him believe I was absorbing the blow. "I see. But don't worry. HR will set you up with a very generous exit package. Dad insisted on that." "How thoughtful," I said, standing. "Anything else?" "Nope. Just keep pushing on Nexus. You've got this." I smiled politely. "Absolutely." As I closed his office door behind me, my heart wasn't racing. My palms weren't sweaty. No, it was something colder, cleaner. It was clarity. That evening, at exactly 7 p.m., I logged into my private server from home. I opened the administrative backend for Nexus, something nobody at Horizon even knew existed, because I had built it on my own time, my own hardware, my own intellectual property. I scrolled through the source code, line after line of logic, algorithms, and predictive models that had taken me 5 years to perfect. Then I opened a folder titled Failsafe. Inside were 3 files: Nexus Lockout Protocol, .exe ownership, proof.pdf audit, trail logs.zip. The proof was all there. Timestamped development logs, GitHub commits from my personal repositories, private journal entries, cloud storage receipts, all meticulously organized. A legal fortress. By Tuesday, the first cracks appeared. "Hey, Claire," Miguel, one of my senior engineers, whispered in the break room. "I heard Jared's getting promoted. To your role." "That's the rumor," I confirmed, keeping my voice steady. "He doesn't even know how the system works," Miguel hissed. "He's never written a line of code in his life." "I know," I said quietly. "Just trust me. Keep your head down for now." Because they were in for a surprise. What Ethan didn't realize was simple. Nexus didn't just require the code. It required activation keys. Keys only I controlled. Without them, the system would run in demo mode. Superficial. Limited. Useless to clients. And the clients had contracts. Contracts that explicitly required fully functional software backed by a legally filed patent, which incidentally hadn't been filed. Not by Horizon, anyway. I leaned back in my chair, fingers steepled, almost mirroring Ethan's own arrogant posture. "Tick-tock," I whispered to myself. The countdown had begun. By Friday morning, the tension inside Horizon Dynamics was like a rubber band stretched to the brink of snapping. People walked a little faster, spoke a little quieter, and avoided making eye contact with anyone from HR. Ethan was strutting through the halls like a rooster in a henhouse. Every time he passed by, people plastered on fake smiles, nodding politely while barely disguising the dread beneath. Everyone knew changes were coming. Nobody knew how deep the knife would cut. But while others whispered and worried, I sat calmly at my desk, quietly reviewing the final diagnostics on Nexus. Everything was working perfectly. For now. "Claire, quick question." Ethan's assistant popped her head into my office. "Can you send over the final deployment package to the executive server? Ethan wants to prep for Monday's product announcement." I smiled, perfectly composed. "Of course, I'll have it sent before the end of the day." What they didn't know was that the deployment package sitting on my workstation wasn't the same as the operational package. The version I was about to deliver? Fully functional. For about 72 hours. After that, the authentication check would fail. The predictive engine would throttle itself down to demo mode. Limited features, no client deliverables, no back-end support. A beautifully designed brick. By noon, Jared swaggered into the engineering floor, clearly enjoying his new role even before it was official. "Hey guys, get ready for some changes around here," he announced, leaning against a cubicle like he was in a college dorm, not a corporate office. "We're modernizing the workflow, making things more efficient." Miguel shot me a look from across the room. I gave him the smallest shake of my head. "Not yet." "Claire," Jared called over, "can you give me a rundown on how the auto-scaling functions for Nexus? I'll need to brief the board on Monday." I smiled politely. "Oh, Jared, absolutely. We can do that Monday morning before the meeting." "Perfect." He grinned, clueless. "See? Easy transition." "Oh, so easy." That afternoon, I walked into the server room one last time. Rows of machines blinked and hummed, oblivious to the drama unfolding outside their walls. I connected my encrypted drive and ran a final sync. My personal logs, my development history, my schematics. Everything mirrored, backed up, and time-stamped. Then I opened the master control terminal, typed in a single line of code. The cursor blinked. Command accepted, fail-safe engaged, countdown initiated. The corner of my mouth twitched upward. It's done. That evening, as the office emptied out, I stood by the window overlooking the city skyline. 15 years of my life were woven into this place. And now, I was walking away, but not before teaching them what happens when you treat people like they're disposable. Monday arrived like a storm front. Ethan bounded onto the main stage of the quarterly product launch, packed with shareholders, journalists, and clients. The whole atrium had been transformed into a glittering showcase. Screens displayed massive graphics of the Nexus platform. Today marks the future of Horizon Dynamics, Ethan announced, grinning from ear to ear. Our revolutionary Nexus system will redefine predictive analytics. Applause. Cameras flashed. Investors smiled. I stood in the back of the room, unseen, arms crossed, watching. Ethan clicked his remote. The giant screen behind him came alive. Charts, graphs, live demo feeds. The demo worked flawlessly. Of course it did. The failsafe wasn't scheduled to trigger yet. Effective immediately, Ethan continued. Claire Reynolds, our systems director, will be stepping down as we transition leadership to a newer, leaner model. There it was. Public. Final. His move. I didn't flinch. Didn't react. Not even a blink. After the event, as the crowd thinned, I made my way to my office. My badge still worked. For now. HR had scheduled my exit interview for Tuesday morning. Inside, I carefully packed my belongings, a few framed photos, my coffee mug that said, "Code like a girl," the little award the company had given me 3 years ago when Nexus first launched as a prototype. There was a knock. Marissa from HR peeked in. "Hey, Claire, just wanted to check if you're... Okay. You've been really composed about all this." "I'm fine," I said softly, sealing a box. "It's just business, right?" She hesitated, then gave a weak smile. "Right, just business." As I walked toward the elevator with my box in hand, Ethan strolled by, clapping Jared on the back. "Told you it'd be smooth, bro," he said. "Easy." She didn't even put up a fight. I stepped into the elevator, turned slowly, and caught Ethan's gaze just as the doors slid shut. I smiled. A real smile. "Tick-tock," I whispered as the numbers counted down. Because in less than 72 hours, the world as Ethan knew it would shatter. Wednesday morning started like any other. Or so they thought. The Horizon Dynamics headquarters buzzed with energy. Ethan walked the halls with that familiar swagger, high-fiving Jared and nodding at passing employees like he was some kind of Silicon Valley king. His tailored suit was sharp, his smile sharper. "Today's the day Nexus goes fully live," he announced to the operations team, loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. "We are about to show the world what leadership looks like." I wasn't there, of course. My exit interview had wrapped the day before. My badge was deactivated. My email, wiped. My name erased from the company directory like I'd never existed. Or so they thought. At exactly 9 a.m., the first warning hit. The operations team flagged a server authentication error. Nexus's back-end systems weren't syncing properly with the client dashboards. "We're seeing anomalies," the lead engineer reported over Slack. "Data feeds are throttling, load balancers are hitting limits." "Weird. Must be a bug," Jared replied, completely clueless. "Just reboot it." They did. Twice. Nothing changed. By 10:15 a.m., clients started calling. Confused, annoyed. "Our predictive models aren't generating new reports. Why are our dashboards frozen? Is this a maintenance window? No one informed us." Panic hadn't set in yet. Not quite, but it was close. At 11:02 a.m., the failsafe fully triggered. Every instance of Nexus connected to a client account displayed a flashing banner. Error 403, unauthorized license activation. Contact the software owner to restore functionality. Dashboards went dark. Predictive tools stopped working. Financial models failed mid-process. Then came the email blast. Automated. Precise. Sent from my attorney's office to every single Nexus client. "This is to notify you that the predictive analytics software Nexus currently deployed at your company contains proprietary technology under patent owned by Claire Reynolds. Horizon Dynamics does not hold a valid license to this software. Any continued use without proper licensing constitutes infringement. Attached were the patent documents, time-stamped logs, source code lineage, and a link to a licensing inquiry form directed to my lawyer. Inside Horizon's executive suite, chaos erupted. "What the hell is going on?" Ethan roared, slamming his fist on the conference table. "Why is Nexus offline? Fix it, now!" We're trying, sir," stammered the CTO. "But the authentication keys, they're invalid. The system's locked." "Well, get the backup online." There is no backup. Nexus requires the keychain Claire controlled. Without it, "Call her," Ethan bellowed. "Get her on the phone right now." We can't. Her number was scrubbed when HR processed her exit. "Then UNSCRUBIT, Ethan yelled, face turning crimson. This is sabotage." By 1 p.m., Horizon's biggest clients were demanding answers. "If this isn't fixed in an hour, we're pulling our contracts." "This is unacceptable. You promised full functionality. Your product is useless right now. We want refunds." Investors started calling next. The stock, once steady, dipped 4% in an hour. News outlets noticed. By 2 p.m., the headlines hit the industry feeds. Horizon Dynamics suffers massive system outage. Nexus clients impacted globally. Rumors swirl of patent dispute between Horizon and former director. While all this was unfolding, I sat at a cozy coffee shop downtown. My phone vibrated nonstop. Texts, emails, LinkedIn pings. Miguel messaged first. "Claire, what did you do?" I smirked, typed back, "Check your personal email." He did. 30 seconds later. "Is this real? Are these job offers?" "Every one of you. Senior roles, 30% salary increase, full benefits, with a company that actually respects you." "When do we start?" "Monday, if you want." "Hell yes." Meanwhile, back at Horizon, Ethan was pacing like a caged animal. "Get legal in here. Get whoever," he shouted. "We'll sue her. We'll call the police. This is theft." But legal had bad news. Very bad news. "Ethan, we've reviewed the contracts. 10 years ago, when Claire transitioned from contractor to employee, the IP clause wasn't properly updated. Anything she developed independently technically doesn't belong to Horizon." "What?" "And the patent. It's in her name. Fully approved. Ironclad. She owns the algorithm. The architecture? Without it, Nexus doesn't function." Ethan went dead silent, pale, completely, utterly pale. No. This can't be happening." It was, and it wasn't over yet. At 3:17 p.m., my lawyer sent the final email. Subject line simple, devastating. "Cease and desist, unauthorized use of proprietary software." The message was clear. Either Horizon entered into a licensing agreement at a cost 3 times market rate, or the software stayed dark. Permanently. And just like that, the future Ethan had smugly imagined for himself disintegrated. By Thursday morning, Horizon Dynamics was in full meltdown. The polished glass walls, once symbols of success and innovation, now reflected pure chaos. Investors were furious. Clients were livid. Employees were terrified. The first thing Ethan saw when he stepped out of the executive elevator that morning was the finance director storming toward him, phone in hand, face flushed. "We just lost Delta Corp." "What do you mean lost?" Ethan snapped. "Canceled the contract. Effective immediately. They cited breach of operational guarantees." Their words. Before Ethan could process it, the head of client success ran over. 3 more clients are threatening legal action if Nexus isn't operational by noon." "This is extortion," Ethan yelled. "We are the victims here." But no one was listening anymore. Not really. Not even his own executive team. By 10 a.m., the board called an emergency meeting. Remote members dialed in. Others sat stiffly around the oversized glass table, faces grim. "Ethan," began Richard Donovan, the board chairman, his voice sharp, "what is the current status of Nexus?" Ethan tugged at his tie. It's a licensing misunderstanding. Claire Reynolds has filed a fully enforceable patent." Richard cut him off. "I've reviewed the filings myself. The IP is legally hers." "But we can fix it," Ethan stammered. We'll code around it. Build a new version from scratch." The CTO cleared his throat. "That isn't possible. Not in any reasonable time frame. Claire's algorithm is the backbone of Nexus. It would take years to recreate. At least 2, maybe 3. 3 years? Richard echoed, incredulous. Our largest revenue stream disappears for 3 years, while clients sue us? While investors pull out? "We can negotiate," Ethan mumbled. "We can convince her." "Oh, she's open to negotiations," the CFO said dryly, sliding a printed email across the table. "Her lawyer's terms came in this morning." Ethan skimmed it, his hands trembling. Triple the standard licensing rate, immediate payment for backdated usage, public acknowledgement of Claire Reynolds as the sole inventor of the Nexus architecture, a formal written apology from Horizon Dynamics for misrepresentation of IP ownership. His vision blurred. "No, she wouldn't." "She did." The CFO confirmed. "And if we refuse, she will pursue an injunction to legally block any use of the software. Permanently." Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. This isn't fair," Ethan croaked. "She sabotaged us." "No," Richard said coldly, folding his hands. "She protected herself. Something you and your father clearly failed to do when you decided to replace her with this." He gestured in disgust toward Jared, who sat shrinking in his chair, wishing he could vanish. "This is catastrophic," the head of legal muttered. "The stock's already down 18%. If we don't act fast, it's only going to get worse." "Ethan," Richard's voice sharpened, "pack your things. The board is convening this afternoon to vote on your removal as CEO." "What? No, you can't do this. Watch us." As Horizon imploded from the inside, I was across town, sitting in my lawyer's office overlooking the waterfront. A pot of fresh coffee steamed between us. "It's official," my lawyer smiled. "They've agreed to meet. Their counsel called 10 minutes ago, total surrender. They want to avoid court." "Of course they do," I replied, sipping my coffee. "Court would mean public filings, depositions, headlines." "Exactly. Here are the updated terms." I scanned the documents. In addition to the licensing fees and public acknowledgement, there was now an added clause. Claire Reynolds has the right to audit Horizon Dynamics' use of Nexus at any time. Oh, the poetic beauty of that. "Send it," I said. "But give them 24 hours. I want them to sit in it." Miguel messaged me that afternoon. "It's happening." "What is?" I asked, pretending not to know. "Emergency town hall. Word is Ethan's getting booted. Jared, too. People are freaking out. Updating LinkedIn like mad." "How's morale?" "Honestly, half terrified, half thrilled. A lot of people hated working under those two." "Good. Let them know they have options." "Our offers still stand?" "Every one of them. Monday start date if they want." "Done. I'll spread the word." At 3 p.m., Horizon's internal comms sent a company-wide announcement. Effective immediately, Ethan Whitman is stepping down as CEO of Horizon Dynamics. The board has appointed Richard Donovan as interim CEO while we navigate this transition. We will be making further statements soon. Cue the flood of whispers, the frantic Slack messages, the stunned faces. For the first time in a decade, Horizon Dynamics, the company I had poured my life into, was forced to reckon with the truth. Innovation isn't disposable. People aren't replaceable. And arrogance always has a price. As the sun set behind the skyline, my phone chimed with one last email. From Richard Donovan. Claire, I believe we have much to discuss regarding a licensing agreement. Please let me know when you are available. I smiled. Not triumphant, not vengeful, just satisfied. Let's talk, I typed back. Because this was far from over. By Friday morning, the ripple effects of Horizon Dynamics' collapse had spread through the entire industry like wildfire. Tech news outlets exploded with headlines. CEO ousted amid IP crisis at Horizon Dynamics. Former director's patent brings $500 million firm to its knees. Claire Reynolds, the woman who outplayed Horizon. Everywhere I looked, Twitter, LinkedIn, industry newsletters, my name was there. Not hidden behind the title project lead or technical support like before. My name, in bold, attached to the algorithm I had built with my own hands. After a decade of being treated like an afterthought, I was finally visible. At precisely 10 a.m., I stepped into the boardroom at Donovan & Associates, flanked by my attorney on one side and the head of the IP law firm on the other. Across the polished table sat Horizon's interim CEO, Richard Donovan, their lead counsel, and a visibly nervous CFO. No Ethan, no Jared. They were already history. Thank you for meeting with us, Claire, Richard began, steepling his fingers. Let's get right to it. He slid a packet across the table. We agree to your terms, full licensing fees, backdated payments, ongoing royalties, public acknowledgement of your sole ownership of the Nexus algorithm. I opened the folder. Skimmed. It was everything I asked for. And more. There's one addition, Richard continued. As part of our restructuring, we'd like to formally offer you the position of Chief Technology Officer at Horizon Dynamics. I blinked. Excuse me? You're the architect of our most valuable product. Frankly, Claire, this company should have been built around you from the beginning. A strange silence hung in the air. Not tense, not hostile, just heavy. For a brief moment, I let the idea roll around in my mind. I could walk back in, on my terms, run the show, fire the people who once treated me like I was disposable. But then, I smiled. Richard, I appreciate the offer, truly, but no. No? No. I folded the contract neatly. Horizon had 15 years to treat me like I mattered. You don't get a second chance at that. His face flickered with disappointment, but also understanding. I figured you might say that. But the licensing deal? That stands. You'll pay for the use of Nexus. Fairly, fully, and publicly acknowledge that the system belongs to me. He nodded. Done. We've already prepared the press release. By noon, the headlines updated again. Horizon Dynamics secures emergency licensing deal with Nexus creator Claire Reynolds. Tech pioneer declines CTO role, cites respect over revenge. My phone blew up. Congratulations poured in from old colleagues, former classmates, even people I hadn't spoken to in years. But the message that hit hardest? Miguel. We're in. Me, Tanya, Luis, Andre, all of us. Sign the offers. We start Monday. Thank you. For everything. I smiled, leaning back in my chair. No, Miguel. Thank you. For believing. That evening, I stood on the balcony of my new office at Vanguard Technologies, the startup I'd quietly joined as Chief Innovation Officer weeks ago. The ink was still drying on the contracts that would officially make us the sole distributor of Nexus moving forward. Vanguard had offered me something Horizon never did. Full creative control, a seat at the table, and the respect I had always deserved. As the sun dipped below the city skyline, an email notification popped up on my phone. From Ethan. Claire, I don't even know where to begin. Look, I was young, stupid. I thought I was doing what my dad wanted. I didn't think you'd... Anyway, I wanted to say, you win. Congratulations. I stared at it for a long moment, hovered my fingers over the keyboard. Then, I deleted it, unread. Some things didn't deserve a response. A year to the day since I walked out of Horizon for the last time, Vanguard Technologies officially surpassed Horizon Dynamics in market valuation. The headlines read, "From Betrayed to Billionaire, How Claire Reynolds Changed the Game." Standing in my corner office overlooking the city, Miguel walked in carrying a bottle of champagne. "Happy anniversary, boss." He grinned. I laughed. To recognition. To knowing your worth. And we clinked glasses. The office buzzed with tension, the kind of nervous energy that builds before something big. Phones rang, keyboards clicked, half-empty coffee cups littered every desk. But my desk? It was spotless. I had been preparing for this day for months. At 9:15 sharp, my boss, Alan, strolled past my cubicle. His perfectly pressed suit, his smug grin. It was like he owned the air around him. He stopped at my desk, tapped twice on the surface without looking at me, and said casually, "You've got the slides ready for the client pitch, right?" I nodded. "All done. I sent them over this morning." Alan glanced at his watch. "Good. I'll handle the client meeting. You probably wouldn't be convincing enough anyway." His words hit like a slap. Smoothly delivered, almost like an afterthought, but sharp enough to leave a sting. I opened my mouth, then closed it. Not the first time. Definitely not the last. For 3 months, I'd been working day and night on this project. 12-hour days, weekends. I designed the product roadmap, built the prototype, handled the data modeling, and wrote the technical documents. Every word on those slides was mine. And yet, Alan was taking the lead. Again. This wasn't new. Alan had a habit of managing upwards, taking credit for his team's work while throwing just enough crumbs to avoid getting caught. He didn't understand the product, the technology, or even the client's real needs. But he was charming and loud. Loud often wins, at least temporarily. I remember the conversation a week earlier, when I first realized exactly what kind of person he was. I had just wrapped up a demo for the internal review. Alan leaned against the conference table, arms crossed. "Nice work, Emma," he said, nodding at the screen. "You've really polished this." For a brief second, I smiled. It felt good to be recognized. Then he added, "You know, for someone who isn't exactly leadership material, you surprised me." The smile vanished. "Excuse me?" I asked. Alan waved his hand like he was swatting a fly. "Don't take it personally. You're a great worker bee. Just not exactly client-facing or executive level." I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just watched him. And in that moment, something shifted. Something clicked. Fast forward to today. 10 a.m. The conference room was already set. Our biggest prospective client in 5 years, Dawson Tech, was dialing in. Multi-million-dollar contract on the line. Alan grabbed the printouts of my slides off the printer. Didn't even thank me. Then he turned, looked me straight in the eye and said the words that would define this entire story. "Stay here. I'll handle the client meeting. You're not good enough for this one." And just like that, he walked out. I stood there, fingers pressed against the edge of my desk, jaw tight. My pulse hammered in my ears. For a second, my vision blurred. Not from sadness, not even from anger, but from focus. Because Alan had no idea what I had done. The thing about being treated like you're invisible is that people forget you're always watching. Alan had barely skimmed the deck I prepared. He never read the appendix. He skipped the technical brief entirely, and what he didn't realize was that the final 3 slides, critical ones, were intentionally blank placeholders, marked as to be filled in during the demo. Placeholders for answers only I had, because I knew. I knew the client would ask. It wasn't even a guess. It was certainty. Dawson Tech had flagged the same concern during every previous vendor meeting. Security scalability. A question about how our system would handle encrypted data transfers at scale. And I had the answer. A complicated solution I had spent weeks developing. Alan? He didn't even know the question was coming. The phone on my desk buzzed. A message popped up from Rachel, one of the few coworkers I actually trusted. Rachel. Meeting started. Alan's already talking like he built the entire product. Unreal. I smiled, bitter and hollow, not surprised. Another message popped up seconds later. Rachel. Wait. Client's asking technical questions. Uh-oh. I leaned back in my chair, folded my arms. Here it comes. Rachel. OMG, he's stalling. He doesn't know how to answer. My heartbeat slowed. Calm. Focused. Because when someone tells you you're not good enough, but stands on a stage built from your work, they always forget the most important rule. If you don't know how the machine works, you can't run it. The next message from Rachel popped up so fast it nearly startled me. Rachel. Emma. It's bad. He's sweating, stumbling over his words. I stared at the screen, then exhaled slowly, like someone watching a car crash they saw coming miles away. Of course, Alan was crashing. How could he not? Dawson Tech was a hyper-security conscious firm. Every vendor who ever pitched to them faced the same dreaded question. It wasn't just a formality. It was the test. The gatekeeper. And Alan had never cared to learn how any of it worked. I glanced over at the clock. 10:14 a.m., right on schedule. My inbox pinged. Alan. Where are the scalability figures for the encryption protocol? Did you update the slides? A grin tugged at my lips. He was scrambling. Alan, again. Check your phone. I need those slides now. I didn't check my phone. Because the slides didn't exist. Not yet. Not because I forgot, but because I hadn't given them to him. 3 months ago, during a late-night prep session, Alan had stormed into the conference room, drunk on his own ego, slamming his hand on the table. Emma, details don't sell. People don't care about the back end. They care about the pitch. Leave the nerd talk out. That was the moment. The moment I realized he would never credit me. Never promote me. Never respect me. So I started preparing. Not for this meeting, but for my exit. I refreshed the chat window. Rachel. Oh my God. Mark Dawson just asked Alan to explain the failover protocol for the encrypted nodes. I covered my mouth, laughing into my palm. That was the exact question I knew would come. Rachel. Alan said, "That's a great question, but let's circle back to that." Oh no. Even over text, I could feel the shift in the room. Clients hate stall tactics. It's the universal language for I have no idea what I'm talking about. Another email landed. Alan. Emma, get in here. Now I stared at it, for a long, delicious moment. The thing is, when someone tells you you're not good enough, but suddenly needs you, that's not a compliment. That's a confession. I stood up, slowly, deliberately, not because I was in a hurry, but because I wasn't. As I walked toward the conference room, heads started turning. People glanced up from behind monitors, their eyes tracking me. They felt it. The shift in the air. Some pretended to keep typing. Some didn't even bother pretending. When I pushed open the conference room door, every eye snapped toward me, including Alan's. His face was a shade I'd never seen before. Somewhere between panic, embarrassment, and sheer disbelief. Mark Dawson, the CEO of Dawson Tech, was sitting at the head of the table, arms crossed, eyebrows raised, looking unimpressed. Alan jumped up. Emma, great. Yes. She's our, technical consultant. Consultant? I bit back a laugh. Mark turned toward me, cutting Alan off mid-sentence. Are you the one who built the encryption architecture? Yes. I didn't hesitate. No modesty. No false humility. Just the truth. Mark nodded. Then maybe you can answer what Alan couldn't. The room went dead silent. Alan opened his mouth, probably to object, but Mark held up a hand. Number, I asked her. I stepped forward, set my notebook on the table, and began. Our encryption uses a dual-node redundancy system with real-time failover. If one node goes down, data packets automatically reroute through an alternate secured channel without loss. We've stress-tested the system for up to 98% load without degradation. Mark leaned in. And scalability? The system's designed to horizontally scale on demand. Every new client instance triggers a mirrored security protocol deployment. No bottlenecks, no manual intervention. Silence. Then, and why wasn't this on the slides? Mark asked, glancing between me and Alan. Alan stammered. We didn't think it was relevant for the pitch. Funny, Mark said, straight-faced, because it's the only thing that matters. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Mark smiled, directly at me. Thank you, Emma. That's exactly what I needed to hear. He closed his laptop with a sharp click. You'll hear from us soon. As Mark stood and shook my hand, Alan jumped in, desperate to regain control. Wait. Mark, hold on. This was a team effort. Emma just supports the strategy I set. Mark cut him off cold. No, Alan. What I saw today was a product built by someone who understands it, and a manager who doesn't. Then he turned back to me. Emma, can I get your direct contact? In case we have follow-ups. I smiled. Absolutely. Alan stood frozen, his mouth slightly open, his face drained of color. When Mark left, the room sat in a heavy, awkward silence. Alan finally spun toward me, his voice low, trembling, half anger, half panic. What the hell was that? I tilted my head, smiled just slightly. Oh, I thought I wasn't good enough. Then I turned and walked out, leaving Alan standing there like the fool he was, drowning in the mess he had created. The moment I stepped out of the conference room, I could feel it. The shift. Every pair of eyes in the open workspace pretended not to look, but they were looking. Heads dipped behind monitors just a second too late. Conversations paused mid-sentence. Fingers hovered over keyboards but didn't move. The rumor wildfire had already started. Alan had failed. And everyone knew exactly who had saved the meeting. I walked back to my desk, heart pounding. Not from nerves, but from adrenaline. From the power shift I felt in my bones. My phone buzzed. A message from Rachel. Rachel. Emma, people are whispering. Everyone heard what happened. You were incredible. I smiled, typing back. Me. Thanks. Let's see how this plays out. But I already knew. The dynamic in that building had just changed forever. Not even 5 minutes later, Alan stormed out of the conference room. His steps were stiff, his jaw clenched so tightly I could see the muscle twitching from across the floor. He didn't look at me. He couldn't. At 2:17 p.m., a meeting invite hit my inbox. Subject. Catch up. Alan's office. Urgent. I stared at it for a long second. No subject line had ever felt so heavy with panic disguised as professionalism. I clicked accept. Then stood, straightened my blazer, and walked slowly, deliberately toward his office. Every step echoed louder than it should have. When I walked in, Alan was already seated at his desk. His tie was loosened. His hair slightly disheveled, like he'd run his hands through it one too many times. A man who knew he was losing control. The door clicked shut behind me. Emma, he started, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. First of all, great work in there. Really. You pulled through when the team needed it. The team. I didn't reply. Just sat down, folded my hands neatly in my lap, and waited. Alan cleared his throat. Look, I want to be upfront with you. This morning didn't go as planned. But Mark Dawson liked what he saw. He's probably going to sign with us. Which is good. For both of us. I raised an eyebrow but stayed silent. He shifted in his chair, clearly uncomfortable with the quiet. I think, he continued, we should talk about your future here. I realize maybe I haven't recognized your contributions as much as I should have. There it was. The offer. The damage control. I'm prepared to offer you a promotion, Alan said, leaning forward like he was offering me the world. Senior project manager. A significant raise. And, let's say, more client-facing responsibilities moving forward. I blinked, slowly, letting the silence do the heavy lifting. It's a big step up, he added quickly, sensing the weight of my pause. You've earned it. I tilted my head. Tell me, Alan, if the client hadn't asked that technical question, if you hadn't needed me, would we be having this conversation? His jaw tightened. That's not fair, he muttered. I smiled, small, sharp. It's perfectly fair. He leaned back, exhaling hard. Look, I get it. You're upset. But we both know you belong here. You've got a future here. Don't throw that away because of one misunderstanding. I actually laughed. Misunderstanding? He winced but pushed through. I mean, look, I shouldn't have said you weren't good enough. That was out of line. I was under pressure. But we're a team. We've built a lot together. This is your place. For a brief moment, I let the silence sit between us. I looked around his office, the fake diplomas on the wall, the leadership books he never read, the empty motivational quote plaque sitting crooked on the shelf. And then it hit me like a quiet truth. I had outgrown this place. I straightened. Alan, I said softly, do you remember when you told me I wasn't good enough? He didn't answer, just stared. You were wrong. My voice was calm, steady. But thank you for saying it, because you taught me something. I stood. You taught me I never want to be in a room where someone like you has power over my future. His mouth opened, closed. He tried again. Emma, be reasonable. Look, I can even push for a director title in the next 6 months. We can fast-track it. I shook my head, almost feeling sorry for him. Almost. No, Alan, I'm not negotiating. I'm informing you. I'm done. I slid an envelope onto his desk. That's my formal resignation, effective immediately. His hands trembled slightly as he opened it. You're making a mistake. I stepped toward the door. No, Alan, you did. As I walked out of his office, it felt surreal, like the air was lighter, like the walls themselves knew something was different. Coworkers pretended not to stare. Rachel didn't bother pretending. She stood up, grinning like she'd just witnessed history. You actually did it, she whispered as I passed. I smiled. Oh, Rachel, you have no idea. Because Alan thought my resignation was the end of the story. But it wasn't. It was the beginning. The next morning felt different. For the first time in years, I didn't wake up to the suffocating pressure of deadlines, back-to-back meetings, or the heavy dread of being overlooked. Instead, I woke up to sunlight filtering through my window and a dozen unread messages on my phone. Most from coworkers, a few from numbers I didn't recognize. Curious, I scrolled through. The first one was from Rachel. Rachel. Emma, it's chaos here. Alan's freaking out. I grinned. Exactly as expected. Then another message popped up. Rachel. Dawson Tech called this morning. They asked for you. Directly. Alan tried to play it cool, but yeah, it didn't go well. I sat up straighter. There it was. The first ripple. Dawson Tech wasn't just our biggest prospect. They were the kind of client that, if secured, would double the company's revenue projections for the year. The kind of client the board paid attention to. And now, they were asking for me. Not the company, not Alan. Me. I didn't even have time to fully process that before my phone buzzed again. This time an email. Subject? Carter and Dawson, meeting request. From Mark Dawson. I opened it. Emma, I'd like to discuss a potential collaboration. Let me know when you're available. I blinked. A collaboration? My pulse kicked up. Not out of fear, out of possibility. But it didn't stop there. As I sipped my coffee, another message arrived. This time from Greg. Greg had been the lead engineer at my old company before quitting last year. One of the smartest people I'd ever worked with. And one of the few who had seen through Alan long before anyone else. Greg. Hey, heard about what happened. Word spreads fast. Listen, a few of us have been talking. We've had enough. Thinking of leaving. You free to chat? I set the mug down. Hard. This was moving faster than even I expected. I checked LinkedIn out of pure curiosity. My notifications had exploded. New connection requests. Messages from former coworkers, vendors, even competitors. Half of them congratulating me. The other half asking, what's next? And that's when I realized Alan's world wasn't just shaking. It was crumbling. At 11:02 a.m., Rachel called. No text. A call. That never happened unless it was urgent. I picked up. Emma, you're not gonna believe this, she said, breathless. Try me. Dawson Tech. Pulled out. I blinked. What? Yeah. They called Alan an hour ago and said they're reconsidering. Apparently, Mark Dawson told him directly. We prefer to work with people who understand their own products. I let out a sharp laugh. Oh, wow. Oh, it gets better, Rachel continued. The board is livid. Investors were counting on that deal. Alan tried to spin it like it wasn't a big deal, but everyone knows. Everyone knows it's because of you. I didn't do anything, I said, smiling. Exactly, Rachel replied. And that's the best part. You didn't have to. By noon, I had 3 job offers in my inbox. One from a competitor, one from a consulting firm, and one from Dawson Tech themselves. Mark's email was short but powerful. Emma, we were serious about collaborating. Our internal team could use someone like you in a senior leadership role. Let's talk. For a long time, I stared at the screen, because this wasn't just a job offer. This was the universe handing me back everything Alan had tried to steal. Then, as if on cue, my phone lit up with one more email. From Alan. I didn't even have to open it to know exactly what it said. I could practically hear his strained voice through the subject line. Subject? Let's talk, urgent. I tapped it open anyway. Emma, I think we both acted emotionally. Things were said. Things were misunderstood. I don't want to lose a valuable member of the team. Let's discuss how we can move forward. I'm open to adjusting your role and responsibilities. Let's chat. I sat back in my chair, shaking my head. It was almost pathetic. The same man who told me you're not good enough was now scrambling to fix a sinking ship. I typed back, deliberately slow. Alan, thank you for your email. However, I've moved on. Best of luck. No bitterness, no gloating. Just closure. A line drawn in permanent ink. As soon as I hit send, I took a deep breath and opened Mark Dawson's message again. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. And then I typed. Mark, I'm available this afternoon. Let's talk. Because sometimes, walking away isn't the end. It's the start of something far, far better. The video call with Mark Dawson started exactly at 2 p.m. No small talk, no corporate fluff. Just a man who knew what he wanted. And it wasn't Alan. Mark leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. Behind him, floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the skyline. His tone was cool but direct. Emma, let's be blunt. You were the only person in that meeting who actually understood the product. Frankly, we don't work with people who fake expertise. I smiled, leaning slightly toward the camera. That's fair. He nodded. I'm not offering you a job. My stomach flipped for a half second, until he continued. I'm offering you something better. I want you to lead our new in-house development division. No middle managers, no gatekeepers, full control. Build it from scratch. Build it right. I blinked. Wait, you want me to build an entire division? Mark grinned. Exactly. I've had enough of outsourcing to people who don't even understand their own slides. We want our own tech, our own systems, and we want you to lead it. For a moment, I just sat there, stunned. No micromanaging, no credit stealing, no being told I was not good enough. Just trust, responsibility, ownership. So, Mark continued, "Are you in?" I didn't hesitate. I'm in. By the end of the call, I had a signed offer in my inbox, Director of Operations and Product Development, reporting directly to the CEO. A salary nearly double what Alan had ever paid me. Full benefits, equity, and most importantly, respect. The next 48 hours were a blur. Calls, paperwork, onboarding. But it didn't feel like work. It felt like building. Something mine. Something real. And I wasn't the only one thinking it. On Thursday morning, Greg called. "Heard the news," he said, no greeting needed. "Dawson's lucky. You deserve this." I grinned. "Thanks. You still thinking about leaving?" "Actually, yeah. And not just me. Sarah's done. Ben too. You were the glue holding that place together, Emma. Without you, it's unraveling." I leaned back, the wheels in my head already turning. "Well, I am hiring." Greg laughed. "No way. You serious?" "Serious." And just like that, the first pieces started falling into place. By the end of the day, I had 3 former colleagues express interest. Not because I asked, but because they asked me. Meanwhile, the updates from my old company kept rolling in. Rachel texted me that afternoon. Rachel. "Emma, it's a dumpster fire here. 2 clients dropped today. Lisa quit. Alan's been in closed-door meetings all morning with the board. It's bad." I couldn't stop the grin spreading across my face. Not because I wanted them to suffer, but because I wanted the truth to finally surface. For years, people like Alan climbed by stepping on others, by faking knowledge, by stealing credit. But the truth? You can't build a house on a foundation of lies. It will collapse. At 5:12 p.m., I got one more text from Rachel. "Rachel, you're gonna love this." Alan sent out a company-wide email, trying to rally the team, basically blaming everyone but himself for the mess. Classic, I rolled my eyes. Typical. Rachel. "Yup, except the board isn't buying it anymore. Investors are pissed. They're talking about replacing him." I stared at the message. Replacing him. For a second, I let that sink in. Then I realized I didn't care. I wasn't there anymore. I had a team to build, a future to focus on. Let them implode. The next morning, I walked into Dawson Tech's sleek headquarters for my first official day. The receptionist greeted me by name. "Good morning, Emma. Welcome aboard." I smiled, soaking it in. No more walking on eggshells, no more invisible ceilings, no more waiting for someone to give me permission to succeed. When I stepped into my new office, a real office with walls and windows and a door I could actually close, I felt it deep in my chest. This is mine. The sunlight hit my desk just right. My nameplate gleamed. Emma Carter, Director of Operations and Product Development. It wasn't just a title. It was a symbol of everything I'd survived, of everything I was about to build. I spent the morning reviewing project scopes, meeting the team, and onboarding. But it didn't feel like a job. It felt like purpose. And right before lunch, my assistant walked in, holding a familiar folder. "Hey, Emma. A vendor called. They said they used to work with you. They'd like to discuss transferring their contract just to us." I blinked. "Wait, who?" "Dawson and Cole Consulting. One of our biggest clients from the old company." I bit back a smile. "Tell them I'll call them this afternoon." Because when you build something real, something honest, people notice. And when you treat people with respect, they follow you. It was a quiet Friday afternoon when the message popped up on my phone. From Rachel. Rachel. Emma, you are not going to believe what just happened. I sat back, a grin already tugging at the corners of my mouth. Me. Let me guess. Alan finally tripped over his own lies? Rachel. Worse. Way worse. The board just fired him. It's official. For a second, I just stared at the screen, letting those words sink in. Fired. Alan. Gone. Rachel's next messages came rapid fire. Rachel. There was an emergency board meeting this morning. 3 more clients dropped overnight. 2 senior engineers resigned. 1 investor pulled out entirely. Rachel. The board tore into Alan. They asked how the Dawson deal slipped through his fingers, how the tech team fell apart, why no one had realized how fragile everything was. Rachel. And guess what? Someone leaked the fact that you were the person who saved the Dawson meeting, not Alan. That you were the one who built everything he claimed credit for. Rachel. The board flipped. They said he misrepresented internal capabilities and compromised client relationships. I could practically picture it. Alan sitting there, his face slowly draining of color as reality crashed down around him. The realization that all the years he spent climbing over others were coming back to collect. I wasn't surprised. This wasn't karma. This was consequence. My phone buzzed again. Rachel. After the meeting, they marched him out. Security badge deactivated, passwords locked. They even had IT disable his email in real time. Rachel. He's gone. I exhaled slowly, not out of relief, not out of gloating, but because something about it felt complete, a full circle. The man who once told me, "You're not good enough," was walked out of the building, powerless, jobless, reputation in shambles. But here's the thing. This story was never really about Alan. It was about what happens when you let people underestimate you for too long. It was about knowing your worth, even when others pretend not to see it. That afternoon, as if the universe was putting an exclamation mark on it all, I received an email from Dawson and Cole. Emma, we'd like to proceed with transferring our full account to Dawson Tech under your leadership. We've heard wonderful things. Let's discuss next steps. I sat back, staring at the message, unable to stop the smile from spreading. The same clients Alan always bragged about locking in were now mine. Not because I stole them, but because trust isn't something you steal. It's something you earn. The ripple effects kept coming. By the end of that week, 4 engineers, 2 project managers, and 1 senior consultant from my old company had joined my team at Dawson Tech. Not because I asked, because they asked me. Because when people see you stand up for yourself, when they see you choose dignity over desperation, they remember it. On Monday morning, a LinkedIn notification pinged. Alan had updated his status. Open to work. No title. No job. Just open to work. For a moment, I hovered over the notification, considering, wondering if I should feel something. Pity. Anger. Satisfaction. But I didn't. I felt nothing. Because when someone has shown you who they really are, you stop waiting for them to change. That afternoon, as I stood in the new operations wing of Dawson Tech, the one I had built, I looked around at the faces of my team. People who were talented, brilliant, often overlooked, just like I had been. Not anymore. Mark Dawson walked over, coffee in hand. Emma, he said, smiling, you've done in 3 weeks what most leaders can't do in a year. The clients are happy. The team's running like clockwork. Honestly, best decision I've made was hiring you. I smiled, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Seen, respected, valued. As the sun set over the skyline outside my window, I thought about everything that had happened. Every insult, every time Alan dismissed me, every late night I spent wondering if I was crazy for thinking I deserved more. And now I knew the truth. I wasn't the problem. I was never the problem. I was just in the wrong room. And as for Alan, well, When you spend your career building ladders out of other people's work, eventually you fall off one.